Put on this computer. Okay, so we're here, and this is another recording of what we would like to call astrology flash reactions, and it's my good friend Emperor Magician here, and me, Dorje from Heart Astrology, and we're here to take a look at the passing of Queen Elizabeth II. And we're going to try to do so without bringing up lizard people, but I can't guarantee that that's going to happen.
Clear your background. That's so cool.
So we're going to start. Mario was just telling me what he's reading. It was really great. Mario, what were you saying?
I was reading Mount. I can't pronounce it, but no, I better not say. I better not say what I'm reading. Next video, I'll say.
Okay.
I'll still be reading it. I'm not going to get through it anytime soon.
So that's our third video is going to be about what we're currently reading. And I hope you all come for that. There'll be some great astrological insight in that video. But this one we're focused on Queen Elizabeth. So she passed away.
Hold on, let me just the quick intro for my channel.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So for you guys that know me, it's Mario Plutonic Planes. Here with Dorje again. We're doing another flash, and that's about it. Dorje is going to start us off. We're going to go into. Well, I'll let you go ahead.
That was a great intro. That was better than my intro. Like
we should have introed ourselves as kings. That's how we should have introed King Dorje and
King Dorje and King Mario. Well, an interesting fact is my boys for my birthday, they got me 2 square feet of Scotland, and now I'm a lord. Like I'm literally Scottish lord.
That's brilliant.
Dorje L.
How do I blur the background like you did?
Yeah. So this is
blurred. It's blurred. You got to set up blurred.
Yeah. Okay. This isn't going to work, but it's Dorje L. period Kirsten. I'm a man of letters.
Yeah.
Lord Dorje L. period Kirsten. So I'm a man of letters.
Yeah, I don't know if titles works. Making yourself a lord prior to you. No, it does, because they don't have last names. Queen Elizabeth, what's her last name?
Yeah, and then the new king is King George III, right?
There's no last names.
Yeah,
and that's why we have the dot after the middle initial, because that stops any acceptance of identity being the birth date and the birth name, the birth, the family's name, which is not us. So yeah, this is not a video on sovereignty, but we're touching upon that for fun. Okay,
sure.
So let's get into
this. Mario, do you mind if I ask, like what you just said there it was kind of far out. It wasn't like mainstream society, not something people are going to come across, kind of like watching Fox News at night or MSNBC. So if someone who's like seeing this video for the very first time and they're like, what is Mario talking about? Where would you direct them? Where would you be like, hey, go look at this and you can learn a little bit more about what I'm talking about?
I would check out the work of Kurt Collenbach. Some of his interviews are on crow77.com. I think his audios are on, I'm not remembering, the podcast network. I'm not remembering it, but yeah, he's Kurt Collenbach. He's triple Virgo, brilliant.
Triple Virgo?
Yeah, triple Virgo.
Now, to me, that sounds like a curse. I mean, like I've got one Virgo. I've got 3 planets in Virgo, so maybe I'm a triple Virgo. But Virgo is so, like kind of like particular, and I think Virgo is just like really channeled down into like the weeds on like various like whatever topic they get into studying or they start feeling strong about. They like just really channel down into the weeds of it.
Well, Virgo is the attenuation of the ego. It's a continuation of Leo. So yeah. It's a huge like force of egoic strength, but attenuated in service for others. And so that's all that sun focus goes into service from the Virgo ego into service. So it's very powerful,
Yeah.
We got a Virgo, some Virgo energy going on here as well. I have some Virgo there. But let's get into this because we're already 5-10 minutes in, and we're supposed to make this like 10 minutes.
Concise, right? Yeah, I got that, and I'm with you on that. But I just have to say, I've been thinking about this Virgo thing like over the last week. I don't know why. Maybe it's because the sun moved into Virgo, so then like there's coming down on Virgo, which is if you ever want to like do a viral Twitter post or a viral social media post, like the day of or the day after, or maybe even 2 or 3 days after, or during the full moon of that month, write something about the sign that that sun is in and give it some kind of like catchy title. And that's going to go viral. Like, because like people are focused on that, like the sun is in that sign. And so that sign is being illuminated. And right now it's Virgo, right? So I've been thinking about like, well, what is the deal with the Virgos, And it turns out that Virgo is in aversion to Leo. Now, you know what aversion is, how it's like, it's a sign that is not aspected by Ptolemaic aspect of, 30, 60, 90, or 180, or 270, etc., from that sign. Okay. So Virgo cannot behold Leo. And so what that means in my mind is that Leos can't own their self, right? Like one of the hardest things for a Leo to do, for a Virgo to do, sorry, not Leo, for a Virgo to do is to own themselves.
Oh, well said.
This is who I am, right? Yeah. And that's because it's an aversion to Leo. Like they can't find that like self-arising, dependent, non-mutable ego that Leos and every sign that aspects Leo has. So like another sign that's like an aversion to Leo is Pisces, right? Can't own themselves. Let's see, it's Pisces. Anyways, like I really feel like that's kind of like
just remember though, it's slightly corroborated though by the fact that most Virgos have Venus in Leo or Mercury in Leo. Well, it's rare, but most of them have, Venus and Mars are trailing behind. So, and just like a Pisces, they might have 1 or 2 placements in Aquarius. So it's just modified somewhat. Does that make sense? There's some support there. It might not be as strong, obviously, as a luminary, but there's some minor support there.
I really appreciate you saying that, because that's that like level 2 inception of astrology. Is you can't just talk about that one sign, because then there's all these other layers that start dropping below it that are influencing it. So like, I know a woman, I know a social media icon woman, astrologer. She's like, I think in her mid-20s or something. She travels the world. She's a bit controversial. People who are kind of like really, really ready to judge other people. A lot of them have judged her as like not being a good person for whatever reason. But she's pretty brilliant, and she's a Virgo, but her Venus is in Leo. And she's always wearing like this red lingerie and like doing astrology in red lingerie or red clothes, and it's like, yeah, like that Leo is shining through. She is owning that self through her Venus, even though she's a Virgo. So I totally respect and hear what you're saying. Although I'd have to say, like, maybe a third of the time Venus is in Virgo with the sun, and maybe even another third of the time Venus is in Libra while the sun's in Virgo, because sometimes Venus is like east of the sun, and sometimes it's west of the sun. Sometimes it's rising before dawn. Sometimes it's setting at sunset. So, it's kind of moving around just like Mercury is. It's going on both sides of the sun, which is really interesting because I think you were talking about Vetius Valens earlier. And one of the things I clearly distinguish him, remember him saying, and I can't quote what chapter it is, so I apologize for that. But one of the things he said is like, if Venus is rising before the sun, then you're going to marry and date older people than you. And if Venus is rising after, you're going to marry and date younger people than you. And I was like, oh,
now delineate that a little for the audience. So are you meaning to say Venus ahead of the sun, like a sign that's
so if like your Venus is if your sun's like, say, I'll use my chart, for example. If your sun's 2 degrees Virgo, and then your Venus is 1 degree Virgo, it's rising before the sun.
Oh.
Actually, it's combust, it's burnt, it's useless. It's like the worst Venus ever. But
what about mine? Mine is I'm a Virgo sun, and then my Venus is in Leo behind. No, that's rising. That's before.
Yeah. So the rising is younger, and then the setting is older.
Okay. Let's move forward.
Okay.
You know we're recording, right?
I do. Yeah. I mean, I thought it was a good conversation. I don't know if anybody else is going to get anything out of it.
No, I thought it was
But
fun.
if I saw that like 20 years ago, I'd be like, oh, that's cool. There's some stuff I can look at there and see whether
You want to
it's
make this a part of it? Do you want to continue from this, or do you want to start a new video?
Oh, I felt like we could make this part of it.
Okay, cool. Let's get into it then.
Yeah, I mean, we could cut it in half because I've got editing software and you've got
Okay.
editing software. So
I don't know how to edit. I don't want to know.
I'm trying to learn. Okay, so I think the first thing we were going to do, Mario, was look at the Queen's natal chart, Queen Elizabeth's natal chart, and you know, it so happens that I have it handy right here on my screen, Queen Elizabeth's natal chart.
I don't know how that is.
You know, we're running an extremely effective show for Mercury having stationed, if you ask me.
We're having what?
An extremely effective show here for Mercury having stationed. We've got a really
right.
Yeah. Okay. So this is when Elizabeth II, Queen of England, Queen of the United Kingdom, and if I remember right, Queen of the Commonwealth, like Canada and Australia, a bunch of little tiny islands. Queen of the Commonwealth. So this is her birth chart. You know, it was interesting because I think you and I were talking yesterday about this, and or this morning, and one of the things you were saying was like you felt like she was really stable and she held the monarchy together, and you were personally concerned, expressing great concern about how now that she's gone, the monarchies might not hold together, the kingdom might not hold together. And so when you were saying that, I was thinking like, oh yeah, look at that. She is a Taurus sun, 0 degrees. Like that is such strong earth, you know, and she's going to like hold everything, you know. So I was impressed by that. And then she's got a Leo moon. So you know, I mean, a Leo moon, that's the definition of queen, Queen, a Leo moon, you know. And then she's got a Scorpio Saturn. So she's like, yeah, I'm holding it all together. I am the queen. But if you mess with me, I might like off you under a tunnel in Paris with your new bodyguard boyfriend in a place where we used to make sacrifices to the goddess Aphrodite, you know. And I'm not making any allusions to what happened to Princess Diana there. I'm just like putting out a metaphor, you know. But I think this is like a very like absolutely strong chart in terms of like someone who holds things together.
She also passed in Virgo. Like she also died under Virgo. It was August 28th or 9th or.
Who did?
Princess Di.
Oh yeah, Princess Diana. Yeah. Well, I mean,
Princess Diana or Princess Di. Go ahead.
Interesting metaphor. I mean, myself, if I was to like, you know, arrange a ritual sacrifice to the goddess Diana, I would sacrifice Diana, you know, when the sun was in Leo.
Huh.
I mean, we could look at her death chart if you want, but that might be macabre. Right now, we're trying to stay focused on Queen Elizabeth II's death chart.
South node in the 1st, North node in the 7th.
Well, look at that ascendant South node conjunction. Wow, that's strong, you know. So what do you think about the ascendant conjunct the South node?
That to me is, I mean, that's like no mirrors, no self. I mean, you have to be very careful. I almost lived on my South Node conjunct my ascendant exact, because actually it might be close to it now on my relocation chart. And my understanding of it was I have to be very careful what I do for myself. Like too much independence, too much selfishness, and it'll ricochet against me, because the North Node is like here for a very delineated purpose. Like it's a purpose for the other, for whatever partnership you're associated with. Yeah, it's not. You've already had everything in the past. So I would say she comes from an incarnation where she already had all the wealth. I mean, she had it this lifetime too, but like to be able to exploit that wealth or to experience it to a full degree, I don't think. And knowing what I know from her history, from her early history, this was kind of put on her. You know, she was kind of invited into this, or it was put on her to take on this role. So I don't think she had too much time for herself at some point. I think this was something put on her, a position, and she took it, and that's where it went from there. And so that energy was moving towards the seventh house fairly early on, I think, if I remembering the early details correctly. Something happened, right, in her teen years or early 20s, where she had to begin taking on this role. It was either a death in the family or something sudden.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember. This was in the series that came out. I think I'd watched the first couple episodes and saw that, and then I was bored.
Is that the one on Netflix or the one on Amazon?
I don't remember. It was such a long time ago.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Well, one thing I'm going to notice here is that that the South Node in Capricorn is about holding on to old things. And so, yeah, again, like she's holding the monarchy together, but projecting into the seventh. And what is she projecting? The mother of the nation, that she's the mother of the nation. You know, it's like holding everything together, but projecting that she's the mother of the nation. You know, I mean, like there was a lot of kind of upset and like, you know, certain kind of like people thinking about like how she represented colonialism and the slaughter of countless people in the name of colonialism. And, you know, there's some people who are like kind of, you know, they had a little bit of a snarky response to her passing. But you know, I'm not like here to judge, you know, like what it takes to be a king or a queen, and like the kind of things you have to deal with if you're kind of born into that situation. But I would say, like, I feel like she embodied a period of time, a way of thinking, an experience. And so I had some sadness because it was like, oh, like an epoch, a period of time has just passed. You know, that period of time has passed, and that period of time will never be again. So just from the experience of being a human who's lived through that period of time for 51 years, where this was the Queen of England, you know, I'm a little bit sad, you know. But you know, maybe if I was to think more about like who she was as a person and the overall like difficulties that you know, the English Empire has caused the world in the last 500 or 600 years, maybe I would be a little bit snarky. I don't know. Anyways, do you mind if I pull up the transit chart for when she passed away?
I do, because I want to mention something before we move on. I want to mention my take on this. So here we have like this instance of someone symbolic of being a mother to humanity. As Dorje mentioned, I'm not too concerned either with qualifying her worth and the value to humanity. It's quite evident to those who read and know, you know, not history necessarily, but just the study of the past, that this is not a mother of humanity. However, yet she retains that symbolic marker, and not just over Britain, but any country that has that Templar Red Cross. And so looking at it from this view of having that she just passed, like this is a marker, and this is a marker to watch in the months ahead, because who's going to take her place? How will that go? Dorje was mentioning the strong stability of this chart with that Capricorn rising, the Earth, with that early Taurus sun. And look at all those projections, all those planets in the early houses being projected outward towards the world once she dealt with those early on issues. Like a very powerful individual. Was she put into a circumstance that she had little power? I think so. I think a lot of these wealthy elites have very little choice. There's something going on. There's a system in place, and they're subject to what they are. As a queen, I think that's just the name, a title, a marker. I don't know how much of her life was her own, especially when you look at this North Node in the 7th and Pluto in the 7th. This is someone who came into a position and was subject to it, and there was little of their life left afterwards, but perhaps shards of like what was broken apart in these early houses. And then last, I'll say, let's observe closely these next couple of months, like what this symbolic marker on the stage of humanity even mean, what it truly means, and perhaps in the years to come as well. So let's go ahead, Dorje. You have the transit chart. Let's go.
Well, I just have to sit here for a few seconds because I don't know if you recognize it, but you just rattled off a pretty brutal indictment of the English Empire and crushing system of the monarchy on a soul that happens to be unfortunate enough to incarnate into it. So I'm kind of like weighing that for a few seconds.
I also mentioned that this is a soul that had no choice. They were subjected into this position.
Right.
Little choice.
Yeah. Unfortunate enough to incarnate into it. But, I mean, yeah. I guess that's kind of like, I mean, so you're born into one of the richest families in the world, like, but they're gonna like crush you, like kind of like Trump's dad crushed Trump, like there's so much kind of like intense, like maleficent narcissism in royal families that like,
oh yeah,
it is just a very tough thing to be born into. And like you, I don't envy anybody who's born into that. Because they're just kind of like forced in these archetypal molds that they have to deal with. And I mean, look how hard it is to break away from that. It's just incredibly hard. Prince Harry was like trying to break away from it, and he just got put through the ringer with his wife, And so, anyways, they're trying to do good, but that was, Prince Harry was his grandson, and so like I wonder, like in the chart, where would you look for the grandkids?
Oh, you just turn the chart.
So, yeah. So
what would be remember the strategy to do it.
I think it's the 5th from the 10th, and in the 5th from the 10th, because the 10th is, the 10th is the mother, and then the 10th from the 10th is the grandmother, and then the 5th from the grandmother would be this Scorpio, the Saturn Scorpio. Interesting. So I mean, to me, that means like there is some kind of like really strong scorpionic rivalry going on with the grandkids. Because you know how like when you hold something together, after you're done holding it together, like upheaval can happen, and I'm seeing some like really kind of sinister, powerful, like grandkids who are plotting a little bit here. Based on her chart,
than I am.
What's that?
You're taking this further than I am.
Well, I mean, we're both just kind of lightheartedly joking around, looking at the chart. I mean, who knows what's really going on? Yeah.
Neptune in the 8th. Look at those portals there. Neptune and the moon in the 8th.
Yeah.
Interesting portal.
So this is now I'm going to have to adjust it to England tomorrow. I'm using Astro Gold. I really like Astro Gold, but I'm going to go like London. I know that's not where she was, but whatever. And then we're going to go to September 8th. And then, well, her time of death, someone told me it was 241, so I'm going to go with that. But that person who told me that, they haven't offered me convincing proof yet. It was just kind of like a random message with a question mark they sent because I was, you know,
Look at it and see if we
stuff
can
on it.
see anything that, that's really evident there.
Yeah. Yeah. So here's the 241. Oh, yeah. So this is, let's see, the ascendant 13 degrees. I'm not seeing anything too.
I mean,
Too
the eighth house is marked by Leo.
Oh,
So
wow. Wow. Yeah. Look at this moon and Saturn conjunct the Mars. Saturn conjunct Mars. That is a heavy transit there. That is a heavy transit.
right, right. And then I'm trying to see if the eighth house is supercharged, if that moon and Neptune were hit by the recent full moons and new moons in Leo, as we just came out of Leo. And it's opposing. Mars is opposing. So yeah, it's opposing Neptune as well.
Yeah, opposing Neptune. Saturn's, yeah, Mars is opposing Neptune natally. So, I mean,
too.
to me, that she must have been like a real cold, calculated person, that Mars. Because, you know, Jupiter expands and Mars wants to conquer. And it wants to expand and conquer using an Aquarian ideal of like just cold logic.
Interesting, interesting. I wonder if we could look at to see if she was still even in her body. I mean, with such traumas, you wonder whether their spirits can even manage and they don't leave their body earlier or something, and have something kind of walk in there and take care of the rest of the years. You know what I mean?
Well, that is a really far out concept. And, you know, I have heard about that mythology before. You know, it's worth reading into. It is worth reading into.
Some mythology.
Anyway, yeah, so, you know, Mercury's conjunct a part of fortune. I guess that's people like, you know, like coming to know about her, coming to think about her, maybe like it's like news about her is like, and it's in the 10th house, spreads throughout the world right on this day. You know, Saturn is conjunct Mars. What's that Mars doing natally? It's opposing Neptune in the 8th, right? So that Mars has relationship to the 8th, has relationships to her dissolution because it's opposing Neptune in the 8th. You know, the sun ruling the 8th here is in the 9th. So to me, that's like, again, word of her death spreads throughout the whole world. The 9th is like the whole of the world, you know. Interestingly enough, and this is a total aside, but I was talking to Rob Hand yesterday, and he was saying that he views the 3rd as anywhere that you can live relatively easy and comfortably because it's kind of like the way you live at home. So he was saying, like, for someone like, you know, us, like if we can get on an airplane and be like in, you know, in England in 9 hours and, you know, go sit down and order a meal, not have to talk to a foreign language, that's still a 3rd house country.
Interesting.
It was a really interesting idea he had there. Anyways, the 9th house though is the entire world, right? Yeah, so the 8th is, and what's the sun doing? 15 degrees. It's a no. I don't see the sun, the ruler of death, doing anything too exciting there. Do you?
No, I'm looking at Uranus in Taurus, transit 18 degrees, squaring. Let's see if I got this right. Yes, about to square Neptune.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
That's an outer planet, but it had just passed the moon.
Yeah.
So Uranus had just squared the moon. So that's interesting with the moon being in the 8th.
Yeah. Yeah, true. And I'm also seeing here that that this sun is actually approaching a trine to this Uranus. Like you brought that up, and that's interesting because this Uranus has been like squaring Saturn like forever, you know. Forever they've been squaring, and Saturn's about to pass Uranus again. And then the sun is trining that Uranus, so it's activating whatever that Uranus is like representing. Uranus is like, yeah, you're out of your body. like bye, you're out of your body.
And
Anyway,
that's real quick though. That's an excellent point for the recent transits because it's going to hit again in October.
yeah,
So
yeah,
this is kind of happening with those two planets kind of like coming to a boil right at the end of the month.
yep, yeah.
So again, more markers for some conflict afterwards.
So you're starting to think about conflict afterwards within the royal family.
Well, I mean, in addition to that, we're having an eclipse on a lunar eclipse on the 25th of October.
Uh-huh.
That's going to be in early Scorpio.
What's that?
And the markers are quite
2 degrees Scorpio, yeah.
mhm. And the lunar one is going to be 16 degrees Scorpio right after. Oh,
You know,
so
2
that's
degrees is just like right opposite her sun, you know,
huh.
just right there, just right opposite her sun.
Interesting, interesting. Yeah. So I mean, with that Scorpio Saturn, I think there's a lot of Scorpio in the family.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah, I'm with that. I mean, there definitely was in the past. I mean, you know, they were offing each other left and right all the time. I think that's kind of calmed down in the last 100 years, but
Right, right. Which I think is could be we could have another war of the roses on hand here.
well, that is a dramatic prediction, and people will look at this video with awe if that happens. They're going to be like, "Wow, he called it. He is a, yeah, yeah." You know, I mean, I know you already have a ton of clientele, and when people can get through and they
Oh,
can
there's-
reach you and get
they're
readings,
knocking on the window right now.
I absolutely, you know, they are very lucky. So like,
They're
call
everywhere.
now and you know, connect with Mario. He is a great astrologer. But if you made a call about a new War of the Roses, like, man, boy, you would become so famous. Yeah, that'd be something. Do you mind if we take a look at the chart of the of the Kingdom of England, the founding of the UK?
Let me think about it for a minute, and then I'll give you an okay.
Okay.
That's good. That's good. It's still good. Go ahead.
Okay, are we good?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, so then this is when the news of her death broke, right? And the ascendant was just like boom, popping Saturn right there, right?
Oh, interesting. Yeah,
Popping Saturn for with Pluto in the 12th, and,
interesting.
you know, and Venus representing the woman, and again the queen. It's kind of conjunct Regulus, just past Regulus. Is moving into the 8th house of death, and the sun is in the 8th house of death. And you know, I thought that was interesting. I don't have much to dwell on in this chart, but just thought, yeah, that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, and South Node in the 10th, another marker for like the surface, the stage.
Right.
Something in the past coming to roost.
With Scorpio there. Yeah, Scorpio being the planet of death too. Yeah. So then you know, then there's this one, which I found this one to be very exciting. And I'm going to show you why. So this is the technique called a solar arc direction, and it's where you move every planet forward approximately 1 degree, give a little bit here and there per year. And you just keep moving, spinning the wheel like that. And so then the UK was founded in 1801, or at least that's when the Commonwealth of Wales, Scotland, and Ireland agreed to live under the, you know, mostly the rule of England as a single united country under the rule of the monarchy. And so then if you turn that wheel up to this year, 2022, 1 degree per year, this midheaven is going to travel all the way over to here. And this year it hits the ruler of the 8th house, which is Venus. And so the midheaven represents the king or the queen, and then the 8th house is death. So then this year is a fated year for the king or the queen of the monarchy of the United Kingdom to die. And I just thought that was so amazing that was just right there in this chart, you know, using the solar arc direction technique.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, if we're going to continue with that, though, then we're going to notice that, like, Okay, well, we got Pluto conjuncting the nodes in 5 years. That's kind of, that's kind of, boy, I'd like to call that probably a heavy year for England. But even more so because the sun is conjuncting Saturn that very same year, period of 5. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of like, something's coming down the pipeline for England here. And in 5 years, yeah. So that in 5 years, there's going to be some significant action for the UK. I don't know. I mean, maybe Scotland leaves, or maybe, Ireland leaves. Maybe I don't think Wales is going to leave. But yeah, that was an interesting thing to see. Do you have any thoughts?
No, I'm not. I didn't have a chance to look at this solar arc chart.
Yeah.
Nothing's really.
Yeah, but isn't that amazing? Like the midheaven conjuncted the ruler of the house of death this year.
Yeah, that's right. That's even more like evidence for some turmoil coming forth, especially now with an obvious like absence of. But I mean, who knows for how long though? She's a symbolic marker. I mean, who knows who's been really running it for a long time? You know what I mean? For a while now. But regardless, again, it's a symbolic marker, and that symbolic marker is now gone.
Yep.
And in this year, at this time, so it is fascinating to see what unfolds. And
right, because the chart's just telling what's happening. I mean, whatever the behind the scenes story is, the chart's just like the queen is gone this year. She goes. There's no way around that. That's the destiny of the nation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I do have one more I wanted to show you. Let's see. Yeah. So this is the 1801 chart, and then this is the announcement of when she died in current real time, or when, or yeah. So I remember seeing this come across the feed, and right when it hits, Mercury is conjunct the ascendant, which is ruled by Venus, and Venus is ruling the 8th house too, and so there's an announcement of death. Like the speech,
interesting.
This death happened. And then at the same time, the ascendant of now is conjunct the 8th house again, the ruler of death. So we hear of like this, of the queen dying, it's just like, astrology is so amazing, like how these things happen. Like we get the message that she's dying when exactly the chart says you should get a message that she's dying.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
6:30 p.m. Thursday. Yeah. No, this is all unfolding. This is like we're right there in it somewhere.
Yep. Yeah.
And the sun is coming up next, which means there'll be a new symbolic marker. The sun in the 12th house is about to be born into the ascendant.
Yeah, something interesting is rising there. Something interesting is rising into the chart. That's true.
Yeah. Really.
And then, and then there's this like war, Mars, the god of war and foreign lands that they're involved in, right now. You can see.
Yeah, right on. That's right on. That's exact. Yeah. Sudden shifts with Uranus in the 8th.
Yep.
Yeah, sudden deaths, obviously, with it being in the 8th house.
Right, sudden death. Yeah, I mean, people knew she was old, but like 3 days earlier, she's meeting Liz Truss, and then she's gone. Liz Truss, the new prime minister, because that happened too, like a sudden change in government. Yeah, that's interesting. So this has been an enlightening conversation.
Let me add one more thing. Let me add the human design chart.
Oh yeah. Let's go with the human design chart. So I am going to share here participants, and then I'm going to share, make sure that you can, let's see here. So yeah, you can record and you can share your screen.
Why are you allowing me to record?
What's
You
that?
just have to give me share power. You don't have to.
Oh. Sorry, I got a little distracted in what I was actually doing.
So you stopped the video?
No,
Okay.
no, the video's still going on.
Okay, got it.
So then we have here
You still can't share. So you got to go to, you can do two things. You can go to
multiple participants can share. Okay.
my image, or you can go to,
Can you share now?
let's see. Yeah. Now I can share.
Cool.
Okay, everyone. So I'm going to give you guys a peek.
Human design, awesome. Awesome.
Okay. Can you see it still? What happened?
Yeah.
I don't know why it's disappearing. Oh, here we go. Okay. So we have Elizabeth down as a projector, a 5-1 projector, which is great for leadership. And as a projector, she was invited into this. I don't know if it was forced upon her or if she was invited in, but it was something that was put onto her. So she took it. And as a projector, once you're invited into something, you can act as a manifester and thus manifest that will. And she did wield power, even if it was symbolically. Like, we don't know, we don't live in those places, but she did wield power. And when we look at this chart, we see that the first thing I noticed, she has the channel of acceptance. And it's right there on the Ajna, the downward triangle on the top of the human design chart in green, not the very top, but right below that yellow triangle. And you see that channel going down to the throat center in order to manifest into the world. Now, these are people that have to be very straightforward with their communication. Otherwise, there could be deception. Deception in the sense that people feel deceived or they deceive the other. It's like a Neptune placement. It's kind of like you speak clearly and directly, otherwise there's problems. And it comes from one direction or the other. And it's a very intelligent channel, though, I will add. This is a very structured intelligence. I have that channel in my family. More than one member of my family has that, and it's just brilliance. It's really brilliant. And then coming down, her only other channel is the 4130, and that channel it's an emotional wave channel. So she would have fluctuated in her sense of things. She would have taken time to really make big, huge decisions, when those decisions were subject to her. And as a projector, she would have had to get a rest, and really just come from a certain space of authority as a projector who's in the status of being a manifestor in this sense. And it's a very powerful. It's kind of it's an apt human design type because of the age. We're in the age of projectors, and here she is under the symbolic title of the Queen, and thus it's a very fit human design type for this role that she's played for how many years? 80 odd years. She was born in 1926, and just passed. She was 96, and she
70 some years, 71 years, maybe a few more.
like I was saying, she was about 19 in her late teens, early 20s.
Yeah.
And that's all I have to add. Anything you want to add, Dorje?
Oh, I am by no means an initiate of the path of human design. Yeah.
And thus I'll stop the share there. Thanks for all your great insights, especially on the solar arc chart. And that was pretty brilliant. I think we flashed some interesting ideas, and we'll see what comes to roost in the months ahead.
Yeah, we'll let the conversation develop, and people who want to eavesdrop and cast judgments one way or another, you're all invited. We're just going to have this conversation, and we're going to respond whenever there's some kind of event that happens that's kind of big and notable, and we're going to take a look at the astrology and then talk. And I'm just really looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to doing that over the year and seeing how that develops.
Well, it's definitely looks like if this turns into the War of the Roses, then there'll be a lot more people on top falling,
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, also there's, I mean, there's a lot of wars, there's a lot of like transformation going on. There's, you know, other stories weaving themselves through the thread of what we know as humanity on the planet right now. So we're gonna have a lot to talk about because it's just, you know, it seems like every like 2 to 3 to 4 weeks, like some kind of like big story comes along that's worth taking a look at, and you know, seeing if there's other ways to see it from looking at the chart that you might not be getting from like, you know, a corporate media presentation, you know.
Sounds good, man. All right, everyone, feel free to subscribe or thumbs up it or whatever it is you can do, whatever the technology allows. And I'll see you guys next time.
Yeah. Hey, Mario, it's always great talking to you. Take care.
Take care.